morning. Happy Saturday? I don't even know what day it is today. Anyway, just want to show you the remnants of today's breakfast. I kind of threw some random things together. This is what I do every once in a while just to see if it works out. Can't have white potatoes, so I use sweet potatoes, leftover corned beef hash, some onion, scrambled eggs into there, some spices. So let's go see the verdict. What are you doing? What are you doing, Willow? You feeling better? Oops. So, Pop, what do you think?
Good food. Good dog.
Something you'd want again?
Sure. Good stuff.
Okay. Enjoy your breakfast.
Thank you.
Hello, I guess this is, according to my wife, this is Story Saturday. I don't know what kind of story she wants, but we'll try. She thinks I have some things from the past that people ought to hear about. I have a few strange things that happened to me that have been kind of fun. The one I'll tell you about today includes another man that was a very close friend of mine, whose name was Floyd Jones. And Floyd was a gambler, and he worked for me in Las Vegas and actually in Henderson when I ran the inspection and testing division for the city of Henderson. And Floyd was the man who ran my testing lab. And he was a gambler of a kind that you don't see very often. He very seldom ever lost anything. But he didn't go gambling every day or anything like that. He'd get an itch, and he'd go when he had this itch. And it may only happen 3 times a year, but that was his day to go gambling, and he just called me up and say, I'm calling in sick or something like that, and he'd disappear and he'd come back with a pocket full of money. So it didn't happen often, but when it did, he always made out. So being as so he was in charge of our testing lab, we were going to build some new sewer treatment plants, and we needed some polyvinyl material to put out in the desert that the sun wouldn't hurt, wouldn't get beat up and so forth. So he and I got to make a trip from Las Vegas to Marietta, Ohio to test out these plastics to be used in this plant. Well, the trip got kind of interesting. We took off on a midnight flight, I don't know, 1 o'clock in the morning or something like that, and we flew to St. Louis, and then we flew from there to Pittsburgh. In Pittsburgh, we had to wait there for a while to catch our flight from Pittsburgh to Marietta, and actually went to Wheeling, West Virginia, which is just across the river from Marietta. And so we're sitting around the restaurant up there watching the airplanes out on the tarmac. There's 727s, big planes everywhere, and in amongst them and wiggling in and out between them is these little planes with twin engines on them that looked like flying barges. Their tails were stubbed off, and they had 2 wings sitting out on the outside of about the middle of the plane. And yeah, I really thought like more at home in the water than it did in the air. And we laughed because they were taking off here and there in between all the big planes. We finished our dinner and went down and got called for a plane, and sure as heck, that's what they put us on. And plane was just a little scary. When you got into it, you had to bend over at the waist all the way down to get to a seat. There was a seat on each side of the aisle. And if I remember correctly, it only held about 12 people, maybe 14, but it was not a whole lot of people. It's been 25 years ago, so I don't remember exactly how many people it held. And actually, I guess closer to 30 years ago. And when we got on this plane, I'm sitting in a left-hand seat right over the wing, and the motor's sitting about 20 feet away from me. And same with my partner Floyd on the other side. We're getting ready to take off, and I'm looking over at this motor, and the oil's just pouring out across the wing. Had a little metal plate on it. This oil was dripping down off of there like mad. And pilot and the co-pilot was pretty much the crew. The co-pilot was standing up while the pilot was starting the motors or something, and I said, you know, there's oil winging off this wing. And the guy looked out there and says, yeah, it won't hurt anything. We only got an hour flight. It's no big deal. Went back and sat down in his chair. So, excuse me. Lie down. Finn, whoa. That's sick. Anyway, this guy didn't seem to be very concerned about the fact that there was oil pouring down off of the wing. He went back and sat in his chair, and the pilot got the motors running and paid us out on the runway. We took off for Marietta, Ohio. And I asked him about these planes, why they were looked like barges. He laughingly said, and I think he was probably not kidding, they're made so that if they go down in the swamplands along here, they'll float. And we can set them down in just any kind of brush and swamp, and they'll settle right down and set in the water and float until somebody comes along to take us up. And I thought, yeah, well, that's a lot of fun. I hope we don't have to see anything like that going on. And so down, we went about half an hour down the way. I looked out the window again, and things were getting pretty bright on that wing. That oil caught fire, and it was flaming off the back of the wing, which had a little metal plate over the top of this, what looked to be wooden wings, and looked to be a wooden body, actually. Looked like plywood. And so I pointed that out to him, that it was burning, and he said, it's too cold out there for it to burn, don't worry about it. And rainy and miserable. And so we got to Marietta, Ohio, everything was fine. Got our baggage, went and picked up a rental car, drove across the river to Marietta, Ohio from Wheeling, West Virginia. We got into Wheeling, or into Marietta, and we went to the plant and tested out the polyvinyls. We were supposed to be there for 4 days. And after the third day, we ran out of things to do, so we decided that we just go have breakfast in the morning and go right out to the airport. So we were supposed to take off at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And these commuter flights apparently ran every hour, and I think it was Allegheny Airlines was the name of the airlines that they were on, they were part of. And these little commuter flights had hourly runs, and we went out there at 9 o'clock in the morning figuring we'll just get on an earlier one and go. So at 9 o'clock in the morning we went out, and they signed us up for the flight. Flight was half full at the most, and no problem. And so about 9 o'clock came around, the 9 o'clock flight was supposed to be in. We got up there and waited up by our seat to be called for the flight. And you looked down the runway each direction for one end or the other. There's not a plane out there except for one plane sitting on the side out there with a motor, with a prop laying on the ground. And it was starting to snow. And the snowing came harder and harder, and we asked where the plane was, and well, it's only an hour flight, so they said it can't be too far lost, but we haven't heard from him. And another 20 minutes went by, and said, is this plane coming in? And they said, well, we don't know, we can't find it. Totally lost. So we weren't too inspired then, so we went back and sat down, and they said, don't worry about it, folks, they got another plane coming in an hour. We don't know where that one went, but we got another one, got room for everybody on the other plane. So the 10 o'clock plane. The 10 o'clock plane also didn't show. They said, well, the snow's pretty hard, so they diverted him to another runway, or another airport, and if we have to, we'll take you to that airport to get you off. But it looks like now the weather's going to be worse there than it is here, so that's not going to work. So we'll wait for the next flight, supposed to come in another hour, and you guys can get out on that. Well, needless to say, there are a lot of people starting to back up for this plane that only held a dozen people or so. And it was getting to be afternoon, and we're waiting for this flight, and the guy comes up and says, as they were walking around there, I said, well, what's the deal on this flight now? We've been waiting here since the 9 o'clock plane came in. And he said, well, yeah, this one, he says, this one's not going to make it off the runway. And so what do you mean it's not going to make it off the runway? He said, see that plane sitting down there with the prop plane on the ground? He said, it started snowing, so we couldn't go work on it. That plane originates here, and that's where it was supposed to be the one to take you out of here. So, that was amazing. They said, well, we'll catch the next one. The next one will be in an hour. An hour comes, and there's a lot of people then signed up for that plane. And our plane's still 2 hours away, the one we were supposed to go on in the first place. And so we're sitting there in line talking to a couple of gals, and they finally come on a PA system, and they said there's another plane coming on the approach. We'll have a plane now. And everybody jumps up in the line to get on the plane. Needless to say, there's way more people than there was seats on the plane. So we got up in the line, and this gal says, well, you guys weren't supposed to leave till 4. How come you just going to hang on here and go on this plane? Said, well, you know, we're kind of in a hurry to get there. And which really wasn't true. We really need a hurry to get anywhere. But so pretty soon they call and say, well, we need people to give up their seat on this plane, and we'll give you a free ticket to wherever you want to go, and $50. And 4 or 5 people took off and went over to the thing and cashed in their tickets, and so forth, and got seats on other planes later. And old Floyd, he says, let's don't do that. Let's just sit here and let them call us. He said, it'll be worth more money to us if we do. You know, being a gambler he was, I thought, yeah, that sounds like fun. We'll probably get away with this. So we sat there, and finally they came on and said, we still have to have more people volunteer to take seats. And we didn't say a thing, because we'd been listed on the flight since early that morning. And finally they said to Mr. Broth and Mr. Jones, please come over to the counter. So we went over to the counter, and the guy says, we really want you to take the flight you were supposed to take. And we said, no, we've already been listed in here. We're planning on taking this one. He says, well, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll give you $150 each and a ticket to anywhere on within the airlines you'd like to go on. And I said, well, since we're from Vegas, this airline's useless to us. He says, don't worry about it. This will be good anywhere. And so Floyd says, yeah, we'll do that. So we took the $150, and we took the free ticket that they gave us, and we took the ticket that we didn't use for the next flight out. We went over and cashed that in, got a rental car, and we drove to Pittsburgh. Saved us a whole lot of trouble, and I don't know if the plane ever made it or not that was going. But it's sort of a whole lot safer than waiting for that airplane. But so that's my flight story, even though I only got to fly half the distance. Could have been a lot worse, I guess. It could have been one of the planes I never found. That's what I got to say about flying. Thank you.